there! It's been a hot second since I was last doing a video like this, hasn't it? And in the year and a half since my last card review, Konami, as is their wont in life, dredged up support for several archetypes, leaving you YouTubers with myself with out-of-date videos, especially if said support completely recontextualizes an entire archetype. As some of you have already pointed out, this has already happened, and in my struggle to figure out what my game plan was to cover them, I discovered a package at the door. To my surprise, this package was from Konami, for no other reason than advancing the plot of this intro, but even more surprising was the fact that inside it was a basket filled with new support cards to bolster the archetypes I've reviewed. A bolster basket, if you will. How they knew what I specifically had missed, I'll probably never know, but even more puzzling is why they provided me English copies of OCG cards. Well, to keep things fair, I'll just burn them in my backyard after we're done so that their dark power can't be used for nefarious means. We start with the Stardust support that was released alongside Shooting Majestic Star Dragon in Dawn of Majesty, beginning with Converging Will's Dragon, a long overdue replacement for that pink vibrator over there. It's a top deck enhanced by additional Majestic support and can provide the materials for a Majestic Synchro immediately upon summon when you control a level 8 Dragon Synchro, which is not a problem in the slightest. I'm rather happy with this, as it makes Majestic builds a lot more viable. I do wish it didn't keep the material restriction the original was known for, but I can't really complain too much considering it effectively murders the worst tuner in the game. This is further assisted with the first card in the pair of Majestic Training Wheels, Arrive in Light. On activation, it puts a level 1 dragon on the top of your deck, and when you special summon a Synchro monster, you can either draw a card or summon a tuner from your hand. It also prevents either player from spinning Synchros with Stardust Dragon in its text to the deck, pretty much acting as Majestic Neospace. At least this is a bit more beneficial, even if it does turn Majestics into a Hulk machine. Womp womp, Hulk's gone. I know, it's very sad. There's also Majestic Absorption, which gives any Synchro monster with Stardust Dragon in its text one of 3 effects based on once Majestic Star Dragon faced in the anime. Unfortunately, it doesn't include the one where you drop your opponent's life points down to 1, but you take what you can get. Is it the greatest support out there? Of course not, but for Stardust and Majestics, it's better than nothing. The final Majestic support is the continuous trap Majestic Mirage, our second wheel in the Majestic Training Wheels. It provides fantastic recovery for Synchros that mention Stardust, and is 100% intended to be used with the easily baited out Majestic Star Dragon to get your monster back. Its other effects are good too, just not quite as important as the first one. Coming away from the Majestic support, let's take a look at Stardust Synchron and Trail, which can be very easily summoned together with their synergetic summoning conditions and then be used to make a quick and easy Stardust. Synchron also searches any card in your deck that names Stardust Dragon specifically, while Trail summons a token that you can use for some Link or Synchro plays. The last card from Dawn of Majesty is Stardust Illumination. It lets you mill a Stardust monster, unless you control a Synchro that lists Stardust Dragon in its text, in which case you can special summon it instead. It can also do a little bit of level modulation, but it's kinda not needed most of the time, so while it could get things out of your deck for later or immediate action, it's a bit too fringe for my taste. Now that Dawn of Majesty's out of the way, we have our only support from History Archive Collection, Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon. The card itself is decent play extension, the issue is that it's a form of play extension the deck doesn't really need. Could it be useful in a pinch? Absolutely, but unless you're trying to get Starlight Junction off or absolutely have to recover that tuner in your graveyard, there's not many instances where summoning this instead of the original Stardust is a better choice. It is a new Stardust Dragon monster though, so do I now need to make a third Stardust weighing the dragons? And finally, our last Stardust support is this fucked up metaphorical proverb, Stardust Worm. On top of its simple special summoning condition, you can also tribute it to summon up to 2 level 1 light dragons from your hand or graveyard, which can, as expected, be used to make something else. What is that something else, you might be asking? That's right, it's Kikinagashi Fucho. Worm's great to have handy because of its potential, which is a lot more than can be said for Red Eyes half the time. Make a high level synchro with what's on the board, a low level one with what's not on the board, hell, make a link and annoy your opponent. The choice is yours. I'm also just going to bring up an honorable mention, that being Ready, Set, Duel, an extremely in-your-face anime reference card that can search a Synchron upon activation, and then do fuck all for 2 turns while it builds up counters to become Speed Spell Angel Baton. Another honorable mention is the Great Soul, again, mostly for its admittedly on-point thematic artwork. It's generic Resonator support with some support for level 10 and up Dark Dragon Synchros, which does include all of the Red Dragon Archfiend boss monsters, as well as like 4 other monsters, but it's literally just for negating a single monster effect and then giving one of the aforementioned Synchro Dragons 2000 attack for a turn. Moving on, let's take a peek at the Black Rose Dragon support, starting with Roxrose Dragon. It's a great addition, searching any Black Rose Dragon support card with a handy self-recycle effect if a Rose Dragon or Rose Synchro is destroyed. It comes alongside Basil Rose Shoot, An archetypal monster reborn that can also summon from the hand, albeit in defense position, but if you set it and then blow it up, say with Black Rose Dragon's effect perhaps, it becomes a true monster reborn that can also summon banished monsters, although only for monsters that mention Black Rose Dragon specifically. See, stuff like this makes me wish that Black Rose Moonlight Dragon was called Black Moonlight Rose Dragon so she could at least hang out with her siblings every once in a while. Speaking of the Synchro Rose Dragons, let's take a look at two more monsters in the form of Ruddy Rose Witch and Ruddy Rose Dragon. Ruddy Rose Witch helps facilitate Witch of the Black Rose, and if upon hearing that, the first thing to pop in your head just now was the word who, you probably understand why I never bothered to include her in my Rose Dragon video. Rose Witch can also banish herself from the graveyard for her recycle effect, recycling Black Rose Dragon, or, almost more importantly, its new evolved form, Ruddy Rose Dragon. It's got the same type and attribute as the original, however she's a level 10 with 3200 attack and 2400 defense. Upon Synchro Summon, she banishes all cards in both graveyards, and if she was summoned using Black Rose or a plant Synchro as material, she can destroy all of the cards in the field. When your opponent activates an effect that would destroy a card in the field, you contribute this card, negate that effect, then special summon a Black Rose Dragon from your extra deck or graveyard. I appreciate how this card symbolizes Akiza's growth in the anime. The first effect implies refinement of her power, not only by keeping herself on the board when she blows everything else up, but also messing with the graveyard, while the second effect is very Stardust Dragon in execution, referencing the bond Yusei had with Akiza both in the anime and the manga. I do kind of feel as though the first effect should trigger in reverse order, as in blowing up the field on summon and banishing the graveyard only when summoned with Black Rose, but other than that I have no other objections. Definitely squeeze her in if you have room, and try to summon her with Black Rose for maximum effect. With Rose Dragons out of the way, we have our next batch of support, which was super unexpected to say the least. Power Tool of Braver Dragon can equip up to 3 equip spells from the deck, and sending a card equipped into the graveyard lets you either change a monster's battle position or negate its effect. I'm almost getting Majestic vibes from this, what with its upgraded effect from the base form and the negate effect, targeting notwithstanding, which is pretty neat considering the last upgrade Power Tool got was so underwhelming. It's really unfortunate that Morphtronics are just such an underwhelming deck, especially considering the interesting stuff they got from Duelist to Pyroxene. Actually, speaking of, let's just take a second to talk about their first synchro, Morphtronic Earfawn. This is of course not Power Tool support, but I do really enjoy the idea of these two dudes turning into a pair of earbuds playing tunes so rocking the monster they're equipped to can attack twice, just like... There's also support for Lifestream Dragon, for some reason. Life Extreme is an equipped card for Earth Synchros that can cut the attack of the monster it battles by 1500, and if a monster's battle position changes, you can pop a card on the field. Also, if it's sent to the graveyard from the field, you contribute a Power Tool Synchro to Synchro Summon Lifestream from your extra deck, as if it had more use than Braver or something. It's neat how you can pair it up with Double Tool C and D on the original Dragon for a handy 2500 point difference with an Armadi's Lockdown, but do me a favor and forget about the summon effect. If you thought 2 pieces of Power Tool and Lifestream Dragon support cards was unexpected, how about the 8 pieces of BlackWinged Dragon support? That's right, 8 of them. To be specific, they received 4 main deck monsters, a new synchro, a spell, and 2 traps. Our main deck monsters are Blackwing's Chinook the Snowstrike, Vata the Knave, Suthru the Illusory Spark, and Shamal the Sandstorm. Man, remember when Blackwings were named after weather phenomenon? Me too. Anyways, Chinook dumps a Blackwinged Dragon or a Blackwinged Synchro to knock 700 attack off of an opponent's monster, the effect being a quick effect if you control a Dark Synchro monster. Because, you know, Blackwings are so good at Synchro recovery. Vata the Knave, looking very much like Penguin Crump sporting Yugi's hair, can special summon itself if you control another Blackwing, and you can use this card on the field and 1 or more non-tuner Blackwings from your deck to special summon, as in not a Synchro summon, Blackwinged Dragon specifically. Oh, and you're locked to Dark monsters from your extra deck for the rest of the turn. I actually want to take a short deviation of this for a moment because it calls to mind that god-awful tuner Vayu the Emblem of Honor. While Vata doesn't negate the effect like that one did, neither of them treat the summon as a Synchro summon, and where Vayu can summon any Blackwing Synchro, Vata's locked down tight to Blackwing Dragon. That said, unlike Vayu, Vata can at least be used as Synchro material in the field, so you don't have to use that effect if you don't want to. May as well be a hard none per turn, to be honest. Anyway, back to new support. Suthru the Illusory Spark can search any card that mentions Blackwinged Dragon in its text, and you can also tribute another monster you control to summon a level 2 token tuner, then you take 700 damage. Get used to that 700 because it really fucking matters to Blackwinged Dragon for some reason. Anyways, summon this, search Vata, summon token, summon level 6, then boom, Blackwinged Dragon. Wow, how cool. Although 700 damage before the dragon that stops that damage hits the board doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, so, whose idea was this again? Lastly, for main deck monsters, we have Shamal the Sandstorm. It can immediately search out Blackfeather Whirlwind by sending it from your field or hand to the graveyard, more on that in a moment, and you can banish this from your graveyard when you summon a BlackWinged Synchro or a BlackWinged Dragon to return a tuner from your graveyard to your hand. Then you take the magical number of damage. At least Shamal has the decency to deal the damage after your dragon hits the board, unlike Suthri who tends to blow his load a bit too early. Also, as a level 4 tuner, Shamal can also put in good work for synchro plays in general. Before looking at our new synchro though, let's take a look at that spell card Shamal searches, Blackfeather Whirlwind. It's a continuous that can summon a BlackWinged Dragon or Blackwinged monster that's in the graveyard or banish when a dark synchro with higher attack is summoned from the extra deck, and you can remove Blackfeather counters to protect dark monsters you control from destruction. Support has admittedly made Blackfeather counters a bit easier to throw around, but certainly not as effective as this card needs to be considered a great card. I do appreciate though how it doesn't require the monster to be synchro summoned, considering a lot of these cards rely on not summoning synchro monsters properly. But speaking of Blackfeather counters, let's look at our new synchro, BlackWinged Assault Dragon, which against all odds is summoned with a tuner synchro monster? I mean, I know Assault Blackwing synchros become tuners when summoned with Blackwing materials, but aside from feeding into their own evolutions, it never really mattered much. I suppose this must be why they also released a dedicated synchro tuner, but it's just such a weird thematic direction to take for a character who never got anything like this in the anime. Onto the card though, it's a level 10 Dark Dragon with 3200 attack and 2800 defense, summoned either with its normal method or by banishing a synchro tuner and a Blackwing Dragon from your field or graveyard, even if the levels don't match up. This does technically make it Crow's Shooting Star Dragon equivalent, but let's not discuss that right now. It can place Blackfeather counters on itself just by letting your opponent's monsters do stuff, and for each monster effect activation, your opponent takes 700 damage. You can also tribute it as a quick effect on your opponent's turn when it has 4 or more counters to destroy all cards in the field. You know, really giving you that Nibiru feeling. The fact that it can just put itself on the board by simply controlling a tuner synchro and a Blackwing Dragon is very nice. Plus, if you already control Blackfeather Whirlwind, as long as that Blackwing Dragon was summoned properly, you can get it back straight away, leaving your opponent staring down 5,000 damage, one of which burns them constantly while building up for a nuke effect. Black Shadow Squall is our first trap, with which you can remove the Blackfeather counter to negate the activation of a spell or trap card. You can then set it back up for an additional usage if you control Blackwing Dragon, just on another turn. I have to say, I really do like this idea of using Blackfeather counters as a resource, but I think it would be better if this effect didn't require the OG Dragon. That's the last card you want to stack Blackfeather counters onto. Lastly is Blackwing Twin Shadow, which functions much like Parallel World Fusion for Blackwings and Blackwing Dragon. You can return 2 Blackwings from either the graveyard or banish to the deck to synchro summon a monster from your extra deck. And to make it more impressive, if you control 2 Blackwing monsters, you can even activate it from your hand. It's honestly everything I wanted Necroid Synchro to be. Synchro summon from death to create life, and then not have said life be dead on arrival. Plus, it could be worse. It functions with the entire Blackwing archetype, with Blackwing Dragon just kinda tucked in as an afterthought. What, did you want it to be Blackwing Dragon exclusive? Honestly, the amount of support Blackwing Dragon got in this single support wave far outshadows anything it had before. If they made Blackfeather counters just slightly more accessible, maybe retrain the dragon to not lose attack with them, or add other cards that could generate counters, I could definitely see this being a fun deck to play at locals. As it is, I've now got to call my initial weighing into question. As you may recall in weighing the dragons, I gave Blackwing Dragon and Blackfeather Darkwraith Dragon an equal score because of their combined uselessness, but with this support I gotta give the OG Blackwing Dragon the edge here. Congratulations! You've become the first dragon to challenge your weighing and come out on top. Well, below, because you're worth more and thus heavier, but hey, it's the thought that counts. As for the final batch of support, let's take a look at Utopia. First off, here's me bringing up ZS Ouroboros Sage. I realized it existed about 90% of the way through the editing process, and the video was already over 40 minutes long, so I kinda condensed it down to a simple thought. It's bad. It summons a non-light number from the graveyard upon summon, and then you equip this and a Utopia you control to give that monster, like, 3400 attack or something. You only declare 1 attack that turn, and it has a limited removal effect, but it's just such a shame that it not only doesn't function with any Utopia monsters outside the equip effect, but the monster you summoned has no material and no effect. It's also included in the Recontract the Universe structure deck in Master Duel for some reason, where it proceeds to do fuck all because it's a level 3 in a rank 4 deck and has no targets for its summon effect. Alrighty, let's breeze through some cards, starting with Astraltopia. It has a simple special summoning condition of basically any Xyz monster simply existing, and it can search any Utopia or Utopic spell trap support by sending a card from your hand or field to the graveyard. In the modern game environment, the Xyz monster will likely be one of yours, so the fact that it's a level 4 means you can easily get it off the field before it gets curb stomped next turn. It also boosts Utopia's consistency, searching most back row cards you may need at any given moment for a simple cost. Alongside it is the new field spell, Zexal Field. Wow, how original. It prevents your opponent from responding to card effect you activate that target Xyz monsters you control, and allows you to play Shining Draw on the top of your deck to draw into it on your draw phase. Not only that, but it also puts more materials on Xyz monsters you summon, taking from either the graveyard or the extra deck, giving you a way to load the lightning back up if it's summoned the right way. I also really enjoy that it puts Shining Draw on the top of your deck, meaning it's not as random as it used to be. An additional card that came out that's worth running is Numbers Protection, which is a counter trap that negates a spell or trap activation while you control a number monster, and if a number monster is destroyed you can recycle it, but it's banished when it leaves the field. I have no desire to cover the remaining number monsters unless they appear in other videos, so take this as consolation. Utopia decks are almost 100% number based, so this could be handy to have available. Moving on, let's look at ZS Utopic Sage, a card that was revealed like a month after the Utopia video came out. It's a handy rank 4 that can search any ZS or ZW monster from your deck by locking down your battles and extra deck to numbers and Xyz monsters respectively. It can also take one for your light Utopic or Utopia monsters by banishing itself from the field or graveyard when one will be destroyed, and with the same summon condition as Utopia but with reverse stats, it's a great addition to boost the Utopia playstyle. That same structure deck in the OCG also brought us a new boss monster, number 99 Utopia Dragonar. It's a rank 12 that can Xyz summon any number 1 to 100 monster by detaching 2 materials, and it can knock an attacking opponent's monster's attack to 0 once per turn. I really like this card. It's Utopic Dragon, the other number 99, but it summons from the extra deck instead of the graveyard. Coupled with Zexal Field, that monster will have at least 1 Xyz material, and the only cost is locking your extra deck to Xyz for that turn, and Dragonar being the only monster that can attack directly. Considering Utopia's whole deal is punching as hard as possible, that may not even matter in the grand scheme of things. It does lead to one question though, which is, how do you play a rank 12 in a rank 4 deck? Why, with Hyper Rank Up Magic Utopia Force, that's how. God, was this named by Yuma himself? Anyways, the way it works is simple. See this rank 9 or lower Utopia monster? Bam! Rank 9 and lower Utopias are instantly made into rank 10 or higher Utopia or Utopic monsters, meaning Utopia Kaiser and Utopic Dragon are options here. Not only that, but you can attach this card from the graveyard to any monster summoned with the effect of a rank 10 or higher Utopia or Utopic card. So you could use Dragonar to pull lightning out of your ass, slap another Utopia under it with Zexal Field, then use this to give it a second material to steamroll your opponent with a single-use lightning effect. I actually really like the idea of these Hyper Rum cards that can catapult your Xyz monster all the way to max rank. Now all they need to do is just release one for Raid Raptors so they don't need to run like 50 Rum cards. Overlay Universe's Emperor Key pack has one last support, the Deal of Destiny. It's a continuous trap that generates an Emperor's Key counter when a card you control is destroyed, then you can send the Door of Destiny from pretty much anywhere it might be to put a Utopia or Utopic monster on the field with this card as material. It could be useful in a pinch, but considering the Door of Destiny is already a kinda hard justification to run, I for one will not be reenacting Yuma's famous Katobingu anytime soon. With 3 cards left, let's take a look at the last 2 from History Archive Collection, starting with number 39, Utopia Rising. Rising is an extremely handy recovery monster that puts a number Xyz monster in your graveyard on the board and then gives it Rising's materials. On top of that, it can also summon itself back from the graveyard when you Xyz summon a monster, which in turn triggers its effect again, although with no materials to transfer this time, and it's banished when it leaves the field. It's a great addition for the deck by recovering pieces you lost or becoming a wall when you need one. Plus, when paired with Zexal Field, both Rising and the monster summoned with its effect will get a material, just proving that Zexal Field is more useful than Onomatopia. The last card from History Archive Collection is another honorable mention, Overlay Network. Once again, mostly just for being a hammed up anime reference, but its effect is a bit more useful, letting you either put a monster on the field in defense position that has the same level as a monster you control, or returning an Xyz material to your hand. This means you could get an extra body on board for an Xyz play, as it does lock you to Xyz for the turn, or return materials to your hand that might be irretrievable when they go to the graveyard. Certainly an improvement over Ready Set Duel, but your mileage will still vary. And finally, we have Draco Utopian Aura. I never really bothered with Utopian Aura in the Utopia video because, while it did have Utopia on the artwork, its effect wasn't centered around it. Similarly, Draco Utopian Aura features Utopic Draco Future, but the effect isn't specific to it either. It's a counter trap that negates and destroys a monster when it activates its effect, and then you can banish the monster from your hand, then summon the destroyed monster to your field with its effect negated. Is it the best anti-monster effect card? Well, not really, but it's definitely a fun surprise when you flip that over on your opponent. And, well, that finishes off the final components of this bolster basket. It's still really strange why Konami would have sent me this, but I'm definitely not complaining about free content ideas. Anyways, I should probably get back to planning out some content. I don't know though, this game's gotten kind of complicated to play. Well, maybe we'll just have to remedy that, with the power of questionable acting. See you next time.